Hi everyone, welcome back to Volunteer to Hague Talks. My name is Laura, and today we have a very interesting guest and a very interesting topic that I think a lot of you can relate, especially if you're a student or a young professional. So the topic that we have is a burning question that I also had when I was a student. Is volunteering really mandatory? And is it a secret for a better professional future? So to answer that question, again, I have very interesting guests today. And to start, I have a student who represents and also embodies what it means to lead and to volunteer as well. We have Ádám Dániel. Welcome.
Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here.
We're happy that you're here. And we also have a professor who is also a lecturer in a university here in The Hague that can, give us a validation or point to what it means for a personal development and relate to volunteering. So we have Tiaan Westenberg. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
So recently, you started or you founded a stichting or a foundation, and it's called the Hague Dialogues. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Of course, we're operating since 2024 October, and we are a foundation officially since the 13th of August.
Wow.
Our main goal, of course, is to tackle down societal polarization by building bridges and combining it with interactive and online approaches. We call for diversity, and I believe also we rethink the meaning of diversity a little bit.
It's very empowering. And representing an institution as a professor.
No pressure.
Right? So, one of the burning questions that we have here for our episode is volunteering really mandatory? What's your take on that?
It's not mandatory. You shouldn't do things you don't want to do, ever, really. But it is extremely helpful. And while you are a student, you also have the time, more or less, to do it. Once you move into a professional sort of career path, you'll find you'll have a lot less time and energy to do the things you like to do, whereas as a student, you can free up your time more efficiently, more effectively, to take part in the things that really give you energy. Not saying that you cannot volunteer later on in life, but it does take a lot more energy from you.
Okay. And what about you, Ádám? What do you think? Is the word out there for all the students and your peers? Do they think that volunteering is mandatory?
Especially my generation is very heavily interested in volunteering. I think we are very conscious and self-aware, especially about our environment, and probably to be a volunteer is heavily implemented into this. We would like to volunteer because we would like to make the world a better place. But of course, it's not mandatory.
Yeah.
I believe once you have the passion or you have a goal, and this connects with volunteering, then that's the point when you arrive to your destination, really. Okay.
So, Tian, volunteering is technically not mandatory or required for students, right? For their extracurricular activities in The Hague or in the Netherlands.
Yeah, I mean, in our programs in European Studies, we do have quite often space for volunteering, where you do have to volunteer in order to receive credits, which means we also make the time and space for that to happen. But just volunteering on your own initiative remains your own initiative. Whether it's mandatory or not, still, I don't think it necessarily is, but it does have benefits to it.
Okay.
Benefits like socializing. Benefits like what I always tell my students is if you manage to align your values with what you're doing, you will be happy. And studying doesn't make my students happy, but volunteering does. So if you can add in the volunteering part as part of your student life, then it automatically makes you happier. And if you volunteer in the right sectors that you're interested in, for example, you can really start building up a network, which could come in handy later on. So there is benefits. There are some disadvantages as well. It does take time, it does take energy. Depends also how involved you want to be, for example, setting up an entire organization versus just helping out a couple of hours a week. But that is really choices that you have to make and then sort of do a, for lack of a better term, cost-benefit analysis.
So I'm also really curious, your The Hague stories.
I'm from Hungary, from Győr specifically. I made the decision to come here in 2022 December or 2023 January. First half a year in The Hague was a new experience. I had to adapt to my new life. A part-time job and dealing with university. It was a struggle. I'm not gonna lie, it was a struggle, especially the first half a year. I think I had to do resistance from everything because I was just. But I was also. It's interesting because I was also working way less than I do now. But after half a year, I started to have this feeling that I'm really missing something from my university and from my environment, and that was the Hague Dialogues exactly.
I was about to ask the question. Good segue. What inspired you to found the Hague Dialogues?
So first of all, of course, I'm from Hungary. So I'm coming from a cultural context and a background which is heavily polarized already. So in this case, it's not really an original idea because it's organically already in me since I was born. Polarization is part of our life, and it was always there. But it's also a problem here, and I believe there are a couple of taboo topics which we cannot really talk about here openly. Not that we cannot; it's not restricted, but people are afraid to talk about.
It's limited.
Exactly. We would like to make a platform for this. I would like to be everyone's voice to be heard.
Thank you. Tian, you have a background in political science.
Yes.
So how did it start? And, are you doing the same thing as a lecturer at the moment?
It started by accident. I moved to the Netherlands in 2014. So,
Where are you from, if you don't mind?
Originally from South Africa, but my family moved to Cyprus when I was 8 years old. So I grew up in Cyprus, and then a large part of my family moved here, and I followed a few years, about 4 or 5 years after that, and I actually did European studies at the Hague University.
You are internalization support. I hope I said it correctly.
Yeah.
How did that lead you to have this role as well?
I did my internship when I was a student at the Hague University in the internationalization unit. After that, I went and did my master's at Leiden University, where I did political science, focusing on ethnic conflict and nationalism. And then when I was done with that, they asked me to come back and actually work for them full-time. And as I was doing that, I ran into one of my old lecturers who said, "Hey, I have a class I need to teach, but I don't have time. If we pay you, will you teach it? Because I remember you were a good student." I said yes, and then 6 months later, they gave me a permanent contract to be a lecturer full-time.
Oh,
So,
okay.
And then
Sounds like a success story.
Question is, how do you actually balance a full life and sustain a heavy commitment? Either one of you can start.
How? Of course, I don't want to be basic, but this definitely requires a little bit of dedication and discipline, to be completely honest with you. But it's not only about the person, who are you. It's also about people surrounding you. And I believe that with a great team around you, and which can also consist friends at the same time, like those people are the game changers really for your project. But in general, definitely a great time management. You have to learn it. You have to curve your time as good as possible. But it comes with experience. The beginning might be a struggle, but I think after a while you learn into it. Just put the pressure on yourself. Like diamonds are made under pressure, and it's absolutely true.
I would definitely agree with that. Time management is a skill that everyone should sort of cultivate in themselves. Obviously, not everyone's going to be able to be the same. Like I can time manage some things in my life, and other things I really can't time manage. Also, when that happens, I'd say I'm still operating under Greek time. Time has no meaning at that point, but it is a very useful skill to have. The other thing I would tell my students, especially, for example, when they're writing a thesis, is pick something you enjoy and something you love. You will be dealing with this for many hours, for many weeks, for a lot of months. If you don't enjoy it, if you don't love it, you will come to hate it, and you will not want to do it anymore. So you have to make sure it's something that you enjoy doing.
I love that.
I would really connect to that with just one sentence that is definitely you have to find the passion for something. I believe that the moment something is not mandatory, but you still deal with it, that's the moment you arrive to your destination, really. Because if you have passion for something, if you're dealing with a task which is not mandatory from either your workplace or university, but you just do it out of passion without receiving a salary, for example, you're technically already a volunteer, but you're volunteering for yourself. You're volunteering for your passion. So it's very important, really, to focus on the things you like rather than on the things you not might be interested in.
That's very well put.
That's why I say volunteering shouldn't be mandatory in that sense, because then it puts pressure on students to do something and they might not want to or like to do it. Whereas if you can put it in a way like that, where it's like, do something you care about, do something that touches you, something that makes you feel fulfilled, something that aligns with your values, then it's, even if it is mandatory, like for example in our course, it stops feeling mandatory. And that's really important. Don't do something just because it's expected of you. Do something because you care about it.
Well, let's talk about sustaining the commitment. Since you started the Hague Dialogues, and I understand that all of the people involved are students as well, like you. So is there any challenge that you faced and they faced as well when it comes to the operations of making, your episodes or the discussion happen?
Not everyone is a student.
Okay.
For example,
Good
we have two people in the leadership. They are not studying anymore, but we are the same age at the same time. So in this way, we could call them actually students. I believe that since they also have part-time jobs and the most of us still are students, it can be very overwhelming, of course, to arrange meetings, new events, or just like brainstorming meetings in general. But I have to go back again to the term, the passion and dedication, really, because this is why it's important to find the right people for the right spots. I think when you try to organize a foundation or anything like this, it even can be about a gathering. You need the right people in your environment to deal with this, because if they are also passionate about the same thing as you do, then you will treat it as stories. Really, this entire project, the Hague Dialogues, it's not only a foundation, but it's more like how I was addicted to dinosaurs when I was 2. I'm technically still talking about dinosaurs now, just in another form. So,
okay. So the challenge that you mentioned when it comes to sustaining commitment with your peers, with students, is setting up appointments, setting up meetings. How do you overcome it?
It's by at least contributing the same amount of time to work. It can be difficult sometimes, especially during an exam season, for example. It's already happening in our circle that we are mostly friends. Most of the people who are there are already friends, I believe, and by time it's just these friendships are becoming stronger, of course. So it's also easier to manage, to deal with the tasks, really. It also helps a lot, I believe, that we are very diverse in general. So it's not only that we are, let's say, we are all liberals. No, it's not about that. We have, I believe, since there's the horseshoe theory when it comes to politics, I think we have at least one person for each segment of that horseshoe. And that's what makes work sometimes. It can make it very difficult. But at the same time, this is what creates then the coherency between us, really, that we really have to find a common ground and to deal with that.
There's sort of two perspectives to it, because we've seen, well, the first one is sustaining the organization, for example, if you set one up, because we've seen a lot of student organizations come and go because people are very passionate and they set something up because they really want to talk about it. It gets really involved and they're doing a lot of things, but they don't have a plan for the future, right? They don't have a vision for, well, where do they want to be in 3 years' time? Who's going to be in charge? Because if, you graduate, you go do your master's, you get a job, you might not be able to have as much time. So who's going to be the one in charge, or who's going to be doing things? You're going to have to shift roles. If you haven't thought about that and you don't have a plan for that, it tends to fall apart. We've seen more ones fall apart than we've seen successful ones, for example, at the university. But there are successful ones because they do take these things into account, right? That they will move on, or they will still be involved, but in a smaller capacity, sometimes letting go of powers. But they're the ones that then sustain themselves, that come back year after year, fresh audiences, because, if you just attract the same people all the time, then you just have a fan club, really. But you also have the sustainability from you as a person. How much can you sustain your commitments? Life happens. Things happen, unexpected things sometimes, things you can't necessarily plan for. Your own motivation dips and downs. I mean, I know I get very depressive here in the winter because the lack of sun. I come from a sunny island. I need 3 times the amount of vitamin D as a Dutch person. Which means in the winter, I know I'm not much use for anyone when it comes to things, because I just want to do my job and I want to go home. So it's also that kind of like, how do you maintain your own passion, your own motivation? And again, that comes in with what Ádám was saying about just having that passion in the first place, and having that values, those visions, those missions that you want. So that even when you have a small dip, it's still there and it still kind of keeps you going. And yeah, sometimes you might have to scale back and say, okay, this week I don't really want to do much this week. But you have a team around you that's like, okay, we'll pick up the slack, right? That's how you sustain it. Because if it's all you, then it's going to fall and collapse at one point. You need people around you.
Absolutely, yes. And have you ever experienced leading or operating a team of, for example, volunteers or any kind of team that you had to discuss about commitments? Or
yes.
I'm sure you have.
When I was at Leiden University, I joined as secretary for Leiden University Pride, which was a non-profit organization for the LGBTQ community of Leiden University, student community, and we were all student volunteers joining. And then in my second year, I also became the chair of Leiden University Pride.
Wow.
And we ran into a lot of the issues that I've mentioned already to Ádám, sort of like the people's commitment, things happen, student life, you want to have fun as well. People not really pulling their weight, you want to be friends, but you're supposed to do this thing last week and now a whole event is in jeopardy. Can we still go for a drink? I was like, yes, but I will still resent you a little bit. It's very hard to distance yourself in that way. And then after I left, before I left, we'd set in plans for continuity, right? We created a whole thing, like what they call in Dutch is the overdrachtsboek. Sort of like, okay, this is what's happened in the past, this is the roles, and within 2.5 years, the organization collapsed and dissolved.
Oh,
that's sad to hear.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I mean, it was a big part of people's lives for a while. It's no longer there, but that's also why I'm like.
But was it rebuilt?
It rebranded.
Okay.
To remove the university part, because we did have some issues there. And then after a while, it also just stopped, which was sad. But there is still a legacy and a continuity. There's still, for example, a WhatsApp group called Leiden Pride, in which people are still quite active. I'm not so active anymore because I'm a lecturer and I work 90 hours a week. That's an exaggeration.
Okay. I'm like,
it's more like 60.
Impressive.
So I don't have the time for all that, unfortunately, as much as I would like to. But yeah, so that was my experience. Okay. So a lot of the pitfalls that we've talked about, I've experienced, and also sort of how to navigate them a little bit.
Thank you for sharing. Is there like a single biggest unexpected soft skill that you learned, leading this, the Hague Dialogues, that you would not learn in a lecture?
To actually practice self-criticism, very, very important. I believe that, especially in the past 1 year, I was focusing more on the more negative critics I received on my work and towards my work because of course there are a couple of moments when you can tell that the criticism involves a little bit of bad manner, but in general you have to take criticism seriously and build yourself up during the journey you do. So, and maybe public speaking in a way that to speak in front of people. Like this August, for example, we had the intro week at the European Studies, and I could speak about the Hague Dialogues in front of 150 students. The first couple of seconds were crazy. I was very, very scared a little bit. It was like 300 eyes looking at me at the same time. But after that, I believe it was an icebreaker. And after that,
I'm sure a lot of people can relate.
Yeah, definitely. So it's not easy, but I think I learned it.
Yeah, a lot of students can relate to that. And speaking of students, recently we roam around the city and we met some students that are willing to volunteer and they're curious about volunteering as a student. Let's hear from them. Let's watch the video and let's see if you can answer them. Yeah, you ready?
Sure.
Ready.
Okay, let's watch the first video.
Hi, my name is Amina, and this is my question. How can I test a volunteer role to see if I'm capable before I fully commit?
If I would be in the position again that I'm still not volunteering and I have to start all over again, I would still say just start it, really, because anyways, you can hear a lot of stuff around yourself, especially in social media. I believe it's a big dilemma for our generation, especially, that we always see the perfect picture of everything, but it's just not perfect. Someone actually would like to implement a total different perspective to their own life when it comes to creating a business, to be a volunteer, create a foundation, or anything like this, because people are selling success stories from their own perspective, and sometimes they even ask money to buy them. Of course, that you pay for them. Like I don't know how these hustlers work. So just gain on your own experience. You have to start from building up from your own experience. You just really have to start it, because it's gonna worth it. Because even if you fail, you're gonna have the experience at least. And the point you failed, you can always reach that point already.
You're not going to know before you do it. You could have taken all the right steps and made all the right choices and aligned it with your passions, aligned it with your values, and you start it and something doesn't click. And you know what? That's okay. If you're volunteering for an organization, they will be okay as well if you say, sorry, this is not what I want to do. Learning to speak up for yourself, learning to make decisions for yourself is also really important, and that could be a valuable experience you get here. But you kind of just have to go out and try it.
It seems we find our happiness in success. That's also our comfort zone, to be successful. Yeah. Sometimes we're
scared of failure.
Have to be unsuccessful to face real problems.
How do you know you don't like something if you don't try it?
Yeah,
exactly. I love that. Yeah. Well, when I invited you guys to be on the show, we also discussed a little bit about burnout. So we have a student who also asked the question about that. Let's watch it.
What boundaries should a student immediately set to prevent burnout?
It's important to remember, even with volunteering, that you are a student. And what makes you a student is studying, going to classes, completing your assignments, doing your exams. So it's very important to set the boundaries of your time for studying from the beginning, to make sure that you have enough time to do that. Because yes, you can be enjoying your volunteer and doing all these things, and you're playing with the puppies and whatever else you're doing, but then you get super stressed because your deadline is in 3 hours and you have maybe your introduction done. So sort of realizing both for yourself and for whoever or whatever you're volunteering for is that you are still a student and you're paying for an education. And you can, of course, make sure that education becomes very expensive by not setting those boundaries. And the added stress of those boundaries, of not having those boundaries, can also lead to severe sort of burnout. So again, time management, but realizing that you're a volunteer, but you are a student still.
I can absolutely align with that. So definitely you have to set the records for yourself. Like let's say you're international, you came here to study, but also if you are Dutch, your primary goal as a student is to learn. Of course, there is the parts of your life, very, very important, that you make new networks and you make new possibilities at the university. But at the same time, the main reason why you came here is to study. So live up to that is the first task you have to deal with. And after that, if you have time, if you have the energy, then you can volunteer, you can have a part-time job. But make sure first that you align with your studies, but it's possible, fortunately. So.
We also have a student that asks about the relevance of volunteering in our CV. So let's see.
How can I demonstrate the relevance of a volunteer role that isn't directly related to my degree or my CV?
I like to approach CVs as creative storytelling.
I love that.
Yeah, a lot of people tend to have CVs as like, this is what I did from here until then in this place. And I'm like, but that doesn't tell me who you are and what you're capable of doing. So it's, when I mean creative storytelling, I don't mean make things up. That's not like, don't lie on your CV generally. That's a bad idea. But it's...
I was about to do that.
Sorry. But it's sort of like, look at it from perspectives other than just what you did, right? So always look at it, for example, from the perspective of what are you applying to? I always say tailor your CV to what you apply to, not just have one standard CV, because you look at what they're looking for. And you're like, okay, what in my experience has made me qualified for this? And it can be any experience, right? So when I was applying, for example, to get the permanent lecturer position, I used my Leiden University Pride, because I used it to highlight my public speaking, because that's what I essentially do for a job, right? It didn't matter all the other things that I did. Organizing events. I'm like, I'm not going to be organizing my classrooms, but the public speaking was important, right? So you look at what you've done and you kind of filter out what matches what you're applying to, and then you present that to them, because that's what they want to see, right? That's the story you tell. So essentially what you want to do in your CV is saying, these are all my experiences. These are all the things that I've done that essentially make me perfect for the job you want me to do. So
you pass through the automated system.
Yeah, always use the keywords. Always use, even if they're in white and hidden, but always use the keywords. But then you really tailor it to the position you want, and any experience can count. Like it's, I used to use my dishwashing experience because it showed that I was task orientated and attention detailed, right? So it's like whatever, whatever helps you sell yourself in a way that makes you essentially attractive for what you're applying for. And every experience can be used.
So we basically learned that commitment, it's something that you gain. It's a skill that you gain.
Yes. It's also something that you have, but it's something that you cultivate. Right. So you can start with a little bit, but you can make it grow, right? You can by nurturing it, nourishing it, learning your other skills around it, so your time management. Because if you don't learn your time management, you're not going to be as committed. But if you don't learn the other skills that keep you going, sort of give you the energy as well, commitment is the sum of everything you have and do. It all comes together and then creates that commitment.
Yes, of course. And it's worth it.
Yes.
Right? So how do students turn this commitment into a concrete career value?
That will very much depend upon the student themselves, what they wish to get from their commitment. I mean, the skills aside, because skills are valuable no matter what you do, right? Any job you get, those skills will be valuable. But that commitment then translates into tangible things when you eventually have an idea of where you want to go into the world, right? So some students come in and they know exactly what they want to do. I want to end up as a diplomat. Like, this is my goal. So, okay, then we work towards that. Some come in, it's like, I don't know what I want to do. Right? And then they slowly discover. I always tell my students, you'll have an aha moment within 4 years where you go, this is what I want. Right? And it can come at any point. It can come from your exchange, it can come from a particular course you follow, it can come from something, from a volunteering position, right? Be open-minded, it can come from anywhere. So your volunteering could be your inspiration for the rest of your life, but it could also be something that helps you get that goal that you already have, right? So that's why I say it depends very much, right? It could be an avenue to get your goal, it could be an avenue to find out what your goal is.
I love that, especially when you said the aha moment. So if I may share my experience, when I was talking with my colleague about being vulnerable and talking about volunteering as well, that's my aha moment to start this project. And to be able to share, vulnerabilities of volunteers and topics that are not really discussed because they think volunteering is all about happy thoughts. Yeah. There's also struggles. There's also, time that you wasted on it, and no one talks about it, right? Especially for students, and I think a lot of students can relate to that as well.
If you talk about commitment and burnout, as we were talking about before, right? You can volunteer for something where you want to make an impact in the world, right? But it means the topic that you volunteer for is cruel and harsh, right? Because let's say you want to volunteer at a shelter for domestic abuse victims, or you want to volunteer for animals that have been hurt, right? Yes, you're making an impact. Yes, you're aligning it to your values, but you still need self-care because the topic itself can burn you out. And that can affect your commitment, right? So you also need to sort of consider, it's like, okay, what do I need to be able to deal with these things?
When supervising thesis, do you find that students with strong extracurricular commitment produce more robust or relevant to their academic work?
I'm a little biased in that sense because most of our students will have done volunteering work for at least 2 semesters by the time they write their thesis. So they'll do it in 1 semester in year 1 and 1 semester in year 2. So all my students will have had volunteering experience, whether they were committed or passionate. Different stories. Some literally pick something just to check the box, which is also okay. But I think it's the passion more than anything that creates good work. Because if you're passionate about what you're writing about, such as if you're passionate about an organization that you've set up, then you care about what you're writing. You care about the events that you create, the topics you discuss, the experience you deliver, right? If you don't have that passion, you just put words on paper and deliver it. But if you care about your topic, you want to make sure your words count, your words matter, your events have an impact.
Right. Well, since we're talking about academia and thesis, we have another question from students. They have a lot of questions,
especially for the thesis,
especially when it comes to a strategic part of doing something, especially in relates to volunteering. Let's hear from them.
What's the best way to make a short-term volunteer role look meaningful on my CV?
I mean, highlight it, point out the relevancy of it, point out what you did with it, and try and tie it to whatever it is you're doing. Even if it's short, even if it's a month, 2 months, you will have had something come out of it. There will be some sort of experience. It might not be relevant for every position you ever apply for. So maybe consider also removing it from your CV if it's not relevant. If you would have difficulty answering the question in an interview, why is this relevant to what you're applying for? Don't include it. Simple as. If it is, definitely.
The simple, the better.
Exactly. Right? Don't open yourself up to difficult questions where you'll stumble and not be able to create a good impression.
Do you have anything to add to that?
I like to keep the things simple in general. So I wouldn't really lie on my CV, definitely not. Like Imagine you apply for something and then you are exposed when you're there, like you are
I know
C1
Excel.
in French.
No.
Would you put the Hague Dialogues as a volunteering experience?
Definitely, I would.
Absolutely,
Definitely,
yes. Okay. Let's hear for the next a question from the student.
How can volunteer experience be transferred into professional skills that employers like to see?
It doesn't come with as much pressure, I believe, as like I'm not saying real workplace, as volunteering is not a real work, because it is, but something which you make money out from. I would say that I would say if you don't go to work to your job as an employed person, then you're gonna get fired. Then it's a very different environment. For volunteering, why it's good, because you learn those experiences you need for your actual job in the future. There's a learning curve when you volunteer, and you can do the mistakes there, and you can deal with them. Like the organizations usually allow you to deal with that. For example, I also treat mistakes within the foundation as just things we can learn from, and I take them as obstacles rather than enemies of our existence. So I believe this is why volunteering should be relevant to other people, and why it is relevant actually, because you can learn a lot, and then you can adapt that experience in your actual working career, professional career.
Yeah, like refer back to the beginning where we talked about as a student you have the time, you have the energy to be able to volunteer. It's also important to consider volunteering is kind of like a trial grounds or a playground. You get to test out different things. I mean, with Volunteer the Hague, you can find all kinds of things to do, right? You have a whole website with things. I always send my students to that website.
Oh, thank you.
It's first place, like, you want to volunteer? Go there.
They actually do that.
Yeah, we have it in our module book.
Tiana, our project lead, would love to hear this.
Okay, we can show her the video and with one more view. Yes, that it's like it's a place where you can fail. You know, like you said, what are they going to do? Fire you? They haven't hired you.
Exactly.
And if you lose your volunteering job, it's not like you're losing necessarily your rent or the ability to eat that week or your family's way of sustaining themselves, right? So there's a lot less pressure. A place where you can make mistakes, a place where you can learn, but also a place where you can gather experience, right? We see more and more job applications with 1 year experience, 2 years experience for an entry-level position. I'm like, what is that? But with the volunteer work, you can say, well, it's like I didn't get paid, but look at everything I've done. Look at the experience I have.
Well,
I've done that.
Yeah, the world doesn't know that you're not paid. But the world needs to know is
that you have the experience.
What have you done?
Yes.
What have you done to spend those time of being at home or being free to excel and, learn more expertise.
Exactly.
A last question from a student, and both of you can answer this. Let's watch.
When you speak to students, how do you present volunteering as something that's not benefits your personal development, but also have a positive impact on your career?
Let's say you are anxious, a more anxious kind of a person, and if you even stress during like an exam or while volunteering and to deal with tasks there, like to write a research or something like this, I think in the right environment, you're gonna adapt a new feeling of life that you are not stressing anymore. So it's also good. This also will help you in the actual work environment for your future, that you learn how to not to stress and not to be anxious, even if it's not that pressurous time at volunteering at organizations. Then you can still learn how not to stress. Really.
And as I said, if you align your volunteer activities with your future goals, for example, we have a lot of students, for example, that are very interested in politics, that want to go into diplomacy or work within the EU, right? So it's like, well, volunteer within that sector. Find something. Europe Day is held once a year, and it's it brings together so many different organizations that work within the EU. By volunteering for it, you're networking, you're opening doors, you're meeting people that may or may not lead to something tangible in the future, but it does give you the opportunity to gather information, to find out, is this what I want to do or not? Look at these people. They're all so stressed. They're angry all the time. I don't want to be that. I don't want to do this anymore. you can shift your goals, you can shift your opinion, your career path, everything, right? So it's like a trial and error. It's a place where you can fail, but also a place where you can get to know things without, as you said, the stress or the pressure of having to pay rent and sustaining yourself and all that.
Hearing Tian talking about personal development, what is your approach when it comes to this topic, especially now that you are a leader or a president of the Hague Dialogues? What's your approach to personal development?
I take this entire foundation as an extra course, to be honest, as education. So, for example, when I will graduate, like my life right now stands on 3 pillars: my part-time job, the university, and the Hague Dialogues. And I believe that once
you have a part-time job.
Yes. So once
how are you here?
Once I graduate, these 3 things gonna become one pillar, because from the Hague Dialogues I receive education. It's gonna provide me my living, and at the same time it's the work, but at the same time it's passionate. So, but it's already happening that because I have to organize technically events, I have to arrange meetings, I have to treat this, like technically you also treat this as how you treat a business. Is the same model how you treat a foundation and the business. It's just one is non-profit and the other one is profitable, but it's exactly the same. You learn all the skills, and it's just by itself the journey provides you all the development you need actually for the journey itself, because you learn from your own mistakes at the same time.
How do you encourage personal development in your team?
I always try to find someone who is passionate about that specific part, like designing pictures. Then I would definitely put someone there who actually has a passion for that, rather than forcing it on someone. And if someone has a problem, of course, with the specific task, I can always give my opinion on it, of course. But the way I work is that I believe that I'm not the best at anything, so I always trust people with their knowledge for specific tasks.
Nice touch. So to end our very informative discussion, Ádám and Tian, if you could speak directly to every student who is afraid to commit, but wants to make their time in The Hague truly meaningful, what is the deepest value that volunteering adds to your life and career that you simply cannot get from books or lectures?
Human relations, but not as HR. I don't even like that. I don't even like that phrase, because humans are not resources. But I would say that the personal relations are very important. And what I experienced in the past 3 years since I'm here, that it's no matter what, how many followers do you have or your organizations have on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, but it's still the personal relations and the human connections which matters the most. And by volunteering, I think you meet the right people at the right places. You are not lucky. You're already committing to something bigger than you are, and that's what makes this entire circle happening.
I would take it a step further, and I like that you used the word connections. So I think that's the most important part. You make connections to the people around you, to the city you're in, to society at large, to the cause you care about, to humanity. You connect with all of that by volunteering.
I love it. Thank you. Well, final note from Ádám and Tian. That's very powerful, and I love it. And I'm sure students can relate to it. And well, there you go. Thank you so much, Tiaan Westenberg, for being here, and also Ádám Dániel. If this episode inspired you, so please subscribe, follow us, share to your friends and family, to your fellow students, to your fellow lecturers, and to anyone that you know. Thank you so much for listening. To all our audience, to our followers, thank you. And thank you so much for our crew, Juliet, Kawal, Amina, Goody, Celine also here, and our project lead, Tatiana, as well, with Volunteer The Hague. Thank you. And you have a wonderful day wherever you are. And this is Laura Linga, Volunteer The Hague Talks.